Hey, it's working.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, I like that Golden Gate. That's a good one. Yeah.
Hey, that's pretty cool. I never done that before. I just noticed it was an option. And I'm like, wow, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Wonder how I change it now. I don't. How do you get rid of it if you want to? More. Virtual background. It's virtual background. Oh, space.
Oh, hey, I like that one. Oh, yeah,
Yeah, I
that's a
like
good one. Yeah.
space. Wow. Right here.
Yeah. So yeah, good to have you on. As you know, I love doing these series of talk stories. And talk stories is a Hawaiian slang for conversation. So I know we had a great one. Last week. Barbara and I. Talking to you, and I thought we'll continue this and kind of dig into your brain about your incredible focus on this precious life.
Boy, yeah, that was a great talk, by the way.
Oh, good. Yeah. Oh, you got to put your yeah. There you go. Okay, now I can see you. Yeah.
I
So
just put my headset up.
okay. So I just kind of want to get into your a whole vision on yoga, and how I know you got involved, in yoga at an incredibly young age. Barbara told me when she was when you were just 14 years old, she met you, and you are already you were pursuing your inner journey. So that's quite complimentary, for someone 14, 15 years old. Uh, I was 17 years old. So,
What started? What was your 17? What happened?
well, I always knew there was we have five senses, and I always knew we had five internal senses. So I always knew there was internal light, there was an internal music, there is a vibration inside of me. And so just like the five senses, I knew there were five internal senses, but I did not know how to connect to them. I had that instinctive feeling inside myself, that was my true essence. That was my inner being. But as a caveat, I did not know how to tap into that. So that was kind of like my pursuit. And then in high school, we had uh, uh, a month elective, and a disciple of Yogananda gave a yoga, for a four-week lecture and practical experience of meditation and hatha yoga. So
Wait a minute.
so I
Yogananda?
yeah, a disciple of Yogananda. So
Oh, a disciple. Okay.
yeah. Yogananda died at 52, the year I was born. Yeah.
I was going to say, I'm like, what?
I'm not quite that old. Yeah.
You would be amazingly lucky and really talented.
Yeah. Really. So that was my first introduction, and I've carried the ball ever since. So and much like you got involved at a young age.
Yeah, um, both my parents were not religious. They were spiritual. Even though growing up, we had tried. I mean, I feel like I remember trying what seemed like every church, but I feel like we went to a bunch of different churches. We tried them all. Nobody liked them until we got to Unity Church. And then everybody was like, yeah, this seems good. And that's the church we went to as a family.
uh,
And, but my dad started teaching me to meditate when I was 10. And that was one of the first really significant shifts for me in changing and getting my focus and helping to get more grounded. And stuff like that. And then after that, when I was 14, I found his book on Tantra by Mantak Chia, who
Oh
I've
yeah, I know
personally,
that one. Yeah. Uh-huh.
yeah, so I've personally studied with him now a couple of times when he came to America, and he's fantastic. So I've been studying his work ever since. It changed my life when I was 14, and cultivating male sexual energy, everything, and the way I related to women. I mean, it was huge. Um, a lot for me shifted because of that book, Taoist Secrets of Love and Cultivating Male Sexual Energy.
Mhm. So from there, what was the next step on your journey? That was, uh, you know what?
Also, I think I was 13 or 14 when Steve Bizjak came to Kansas City. He was in the Guinness Book World Records for walking on the hottest fires and the longest hot fire in the world. He had the record for that.
Oh
And
wow.
he was teaching fire walking. He was teaching a weekend workshop. And my dad had been wanting to do it for a long time. And so we went we went to this Friday night thing over at what is that really big theater, the Lynn, no, I don't know if it's even there now. I mean, of course, this is so long. Massive theater. Everybody went there. It was like not a drive-in theater. It was a real sit-down luxury kind of. I don't know. I can't think of it now. But anyway, it was this. It was done out behind it in the parking lot,
Oh wow.
and
Okay. Uh-huh.
he had a cord of wood sitting there, and it was half of it was on fire in a pile.
Uh-huh.
And he was gathering people around and doing this lecture and walking around, and then after about a half hour or so he starts raking it out into this long path, and he's still talking, and he had already had a chance to talk with my dad and knew that he was really committed to doing this thing and this firewalk, and we're sitting on the side of this long thing. It's just, you can feel the heat coming off of it, and there's probably 30 of us, and he's so confident. This guy is so confident that he reaches down to my dad's hand and says, this guy's never walked on fire before, but I can feel his commitment. I just know he's ready to do this. And he brings him up. My dad hadn't signed the waiver. He hadn't filled out any paperwork for this guy, right? Nothing. And boom, just takes him right up. He didn't even take the fucking class. And he just believes in him and says, here, walk. And my dad fucking walked on fire, just like that. And I was everybody was blown away. And so I took the workshop, and I was 14, in fact. And there was a woman that was, I think she was 74, and she was the oldest. And so there's about 34 of us in between. And so I still have a picture of me sitting with him and my dad, and wearing this shirt from him. I walked on fire. I can do anything I choose was his logo. And that was just a huge shift in sort of energy and confidence and perspective. I ended up walking on fire 3 times over the weekend, and it was just it was fantastic. It was a huge thing I wasn't even expecting. I went to school that day, no big deal, and sunset, I'm watching my dad walk on fire.
You want to hear a funny story? That first time I ever walked on fire was with your dad. In
No
Sedona.
way.
Yep.
In Sedona?
In Sedona. Yep.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
How did that happen?
That happened. We were taking the seminar. It was like a week long seminar. I forgot exactly what it was, but then a part of the seminar, that an instructor, ask your dad if he would lead a firework or walking ceremony. So
I remember that.
yeah. So he did, and yeah, and as Barbara's and I's first time. Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. So
Wow.
then, how did you actually get into hatha yoga?
Yoga didn't come for a long time. I was in my early 20s.
Uh-huh.
Oh, that's an interesting story, really. uh, let's see if I should back up or not, because
Is this
I
after your Navy SEALs or before?
after, yeah, well after.
Okay.
Uh, let's see, I was a gym rat. And am I coming through okay? Can you see me? Am I in the right place?
Yeah, I can see you. Yeah, you're fading off on and off with that background, but it's okay. That's good.
Here, I'll just put it back here. Is that better?
Yeah, it's better. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll backtrack just a bit because I was in a really bad motorcycle wreck with my girlfriend in Florida. We were cut off on the freeway by this lady, a grandma and her daughter, and I ended up going into care for a couple of years because of it. And I became a gym rat and basically spent 5 hours in the day in the gym almost every 6 days a week. Hour and a half in the sauna, the hot tub, water therapy, TheraBand therapy, all of this stuff that I just did on my own. Because I was literally run over on the freeway
Oh
and
my.
ended up stuffed under my motorcycle under an SUV.
Oh my
Yeah.
God. Oh.
It was a brutal, 60 plus mile an hour wreck. And they thought everything was broken when I went to the hospital. And miraculously, not one bone was broken.
Wow.
Yeah. So anyway, I ended up moving from where my mom lived in Florida to go back to Sedona. And eventually, I ended up in Seattle to follow this. What did I end up in Seattle for? Oh, I came up to Seattle to do continued massage education and get my license because I was always already doing body work in Sedona. And I was just going to spend a couple of years in Seattle and then go back to Sedona. But I ended up falling in love with it here. And now it's all like 30 years I've been here. Well, I started dating a girl and she was really into yoga. I was really into the gym. And I didn't want anything to do with yoga. I thought yoga was for old people and sleepy people.
Mm-hmm.
Literally, that was my perspective. And I really wasn't, let me get my phone charger. You know, I would consider myself, pretty spiritual, but not like I have been since yoga. Like yoga shifted that in a significant way and made it even more personal and transformational and sort of embodying of an experience. But anyway, this gal there, Power, this gal, she kept trying to get me to go to yoga, and I was like, no, I don't want to do your yoga. Why don't you come and work out at the gym with me? She didn't want to work out at the gym. And she's like, how about this? I'll schedule a private with my really cute teacher. And we'll go to her house and we'll hot tub and we'll do some yoga and, we'll just take it easy.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, two chicks in the hot tub. I'm going to have sex with both of them. And there's no way we're doing yoga. That's the ego base I was playing with at that time, right? I was, and I don't quite honestly know if this was her intention or not. I don't remember ever talking to her. If she just manipulated me in this way, but I'm glad she did in the end. Anyway, we did the hot tub. Nobody was naked. we did the yoga, and I got my ass beat. She was a Bikrams instructor.
Oh gosh. Oh wow. Oh.
Yeah. So my very first introduction to yoga was Bikrams, and it beat my ass. Like, it was humiliating, quite frankly.
Yeah.
Um, and I sort of went home with my tail between my legs. Like, I couldn't even bend over and touch my toes. Like, that's how tired I was from doing the gym so much, for so long now. It had been, probably 5 years or so since my motorcycle wreck. And I had just, there was a time when I was a teenager that I studied martial arts. That was another pretty significant shift for me around the 14, 13-year-old age, because I got beat up quite a bit. And finally I got into martial arts, and it just stopped, which was fantastic. I would highly recommend it. But anyway, where was I? Back to the yoga.
You're talking about you came home with the tail of
Yeah, so we go back, and she decides me, and that wasn't even a heated class. That was just in her living room on the carpet. So I was brutalized without the 110-degree humidified heat that they normally add to that little, the room. So finally she says, well, let's go and do a real, hot class, and you can really, experience it. And I go in and I do this class, and there's towels, and the instructor's like, if you feel you gotta puke, don't leave the room. If you feel you gotta puke in your own towel, and all these like crazy things. I'm just like, what the hell kind of thing is this? And God, honestly, in I don't know, 15, 20 minutes, I felt sick. I felt like something was wrong, and I'm not going to make it. And but my own ego and my ego, I just was so strong of being a gym rat that I just persisted. I put myself into things I shouldn't have done. I behaved in ways knowing now that people do, and they willingly do, because of their ego. And it took me a couple of years after that to really look back, after studying other yoga eventually, and look back and realize the damage I was doing to myself by excessively doing things, and doing things that just aren't safe. Like the whole Bikram's practice isn't, in my opinion, a safe practice, and it starts out with a very unsafe practice in the very beginning. And I ended up getting back pain for months and months, and nobody could tell me why. None of the teachers knew. The owners didn't know. Nobody, they're not experienced enough to tell you what's wrong with you.
Yeah.
And it wasn't eventually until I did other yoga that I was able to heal myself, heal my back, and solve that problem. But anyway, the heat killed me. Again, humiliated. And we did it sporadically, maybe 2 or 3 times over the next month or so. And then I got into it. Something shifted, and I got a hungering for it. I got a hankering for it. And I freely admit that my ego is, or was, the driving factor for me to want to overcome the problem. And so charging, yeah. And so ultimately what happened was I went from, a couple of times in a month to almost every day of the week, to every day of the week, to doing doubles every day of the week of 90-minute, 110-degree classes. And in a month, my teacher had to go out of town for something, and she's like, can you sub for me? And I'm like, what the fuck do I don't know? I'm a teacher. She's like, look, the pictures are up on the wall. Just follow the pictures, tell them what to do. And I'm like, I was scared to death. I didn't want to. And she's like, well, you're all I got. I need you to cover. Everybody knows you, I was at the top of the class, just like that. And I just dove into it and gave up going to the gym. I gave up all the hours in the gym and just commuted to yoga every day. And if you could do 2 in a day, the second class was free. Well, it's not like I had a lot of money, so I was capitalizing on that second class free. So anyway, my progress, plus I had a sensory deprivation chamber. So I was floating in my float tank every day, usually before and after doing 90 minutes or longer of yoga. And so I went from not being able to touch my toes to being able to stand, to slide my hand under my feet with straight legs, like easily, and do, amazing things that a lot of people who started the same time I did or had been in it a long time before me saw my progress go through the roof. Like, just in a matter of 6 months, I was doing things that, a lot of other people couldn't. And I attribute that to floating every day. I attribute that to floating more than I do the yoga, because the Bikrams I was studying was shit yoga, basically. That being said, I am so hesitant to say it because I just hate to compliment it in any way. Because I know too much about the person who created it and the person who still exists today and the suffering he's created across the world. But so I won't give it to him. I'll give it to the yoga, because the yoga is time tested for thousands of years. And it doesn't matter who teaches the yoga, that if you do the yoga and you intend to accomplish something from it, something will happen. Whether you like it or not, transformation will happen. And it's so profound. I mean, the yoga is so profound in that way. And it just, what I got from yoga, I never got in 30 years of working out. Nothing even came close. And after my motorcycle wreck, I tried everything: Tai Chi, Qigong, yoga, Pilates, aerobic, everything I could think of, just for my own therapy when I was back in Florida. And none of that came anywhere close to the years later of me discovering the shit yoga of Bikram's yoga, the bare minimum scratch of the bottom of the barrel, and it transformed me exponentially in a very short window of time. And I will also give it to the heat. So I will say that I'm not a fan of doing the hot yoga. I think it's excessive, and I think it's risky and unnecessary, and it teaches people to not heat themselves from the inside, which I later learned to do, with Ujjayi breathing. And so that being said, again, I go back to my ignorance and say that because I was ignorant in creating my own heat, that did the heat for me. And it got me further than I would have in a cold room, without a doubt. The militaristic berating and psychological and mental abuse that goes along with every class, taught across the board, and all of those studios who have left that and then coined themselves as hot yoga and still are using the same formula. They've copied that formula. They didn't even have the courage or the creativity to come up with their own formula and share that. That to me is that's a bit of it's not that fucking hard to make up 20 or 30 poses and put them together in a safe way for somebody, right? You don't have to be a rocket scientist. If you're a yoga teacher at all, you don't need to copy somebody else's work who was a horrible fucking person and go and call it this other hot yoga thing. And sorry, it's my little rant, but it applies, and it applies to my education. And it's just it's almost lower than what he's done.
Yeah.
You know, it's like taking the information from a rapist and being like, oh, we're not going to call it rapist. We're going to call it something else.
Yeah, yeah. For me, when it comes to hatha yoga, I think that the most, I do it totally with my eyes closed. And when I hold a posture, I try to hold it for 3 to 5 minutes.
Oh,
So
that's a fun.
so basically what I do is I get into a total meditation state. So there's no difference between the outside and inside. It just enter that field within. So, and I never push anything. I think for me the progress in yoga is minute, very minute. Never force yourself, and just allow through relaxation in the pose. That's how release happens. That's personally for me. Everyone has their point of view, but for my own particular journey on the yoga path, I kind of the Jains firmly
Yeah.
believe in relaxation. Relax. Just like your float. You said when you did yoga with your flotation tank, that the key thing was when you're in the flotation tanks, you totally relax. Don't you feel that's where progress happens, is when you relax into anything in life. Never, if you struggle, basically that's where tension comes from, right? That's how tension gets stored in our body, because of the struggles that we do.
Certainly, exactly.
When we relax, then progress happens.
Yeah. The first 6 months of my yoga experience, I beat myself into submission. And that's because of the teaching and the lineage, nothing else. That's why it's really, like, I have a really hard time with when I go to yoga studios around the world and I see what teachers are doing, and I see students behaving poorly or risky in class, and the teacher do nothing about it. I like, student safety is my number one, like, absolute critical, most important factor when I teach. And it just bugs the shit out of me that there are so many teachers out there, beginner or otherwise, who are just teaching along haphazardly, walking around through a class, not touching or adjusting anybody, and just let somebody injure themselves and expect them to know what's right or what's to do. That's like giving somebody a condom and saying, here, go fuck. Like, that's just, sorry, but like, that's just, it's like, it's not wise, safe, supportive etiquette behavior. Like, you just can't take, yoga is dangerous. Like, tantra is dangerous. Like, I had a really dangerous, a personal experience when I started doing tantra and cultivating sexual energy in the early days, and I almost burned out one of my kidneys. And it took me I quit for years, and it wasn't until I met a tantra master who then told me what I had done and how risky it is when you're cultivating chi, that you can move this incredible well of energy up in you, and if it just sits at the base of your kidneys, it's like this fiery testicle energy, and you can burn out a kidney like that. So by not moving and allowing the chi to flow, I had caused myself back pain that lasted for a couple of months. It was brutal, and I had no idea how to get out of it. So anyway, yoga is the same way, and done wrong, a tiny little bit can just cause suffering for people. And if you as a teacher look at that and see that and do nothing about it, you're inept. Inept, is that the word I'm looking for?
Yeah,
Inept?
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's Trump. That's like, let's just you figure it out for yourself. Everybody's responsible. That's, you shouldn't be teaching if that's your thinking. There's too much at stake, and people got to go home to their lives and their family, and yoga should be healing them and supporting them. not taking away from them, and
Because
cause suffering. Like I
I
had enough.
remember, when I first, took yoga, it was relatively unknown. This is in 1971, in the States. There were no yoga studios, none of that. Unfortunately or unfortunately, now it exists everywhere. But yet, as you said, yoga, hatha yoga is only a small part of the overall yoga practice, and that's what most people are taught. And don't you think, because they're not taught the rest, they in a typical yoga class, there is a kind of like a competition with one another. Who's the best one? It's more glorifying the ego than surrendering. And I think, that a teacher that themselves is responsible for holding the aura of the class. And I think it's their responsibility to teach more than yoga is just a physical exercise.
Yes, yes, and hatha yoga is such a term it's like saying Toyota. It's like saying I drive a Toyota. It really doesn't tell me anything, because I could be
Yeah.
driving a car, a truck, an SUV, a sports car. Like, hatha yoga is such a misnomer. Hatha means sun and moon. It means the heat and the cool, the yin and the yang. Sorry, the yang and the yin, if you want a sun and moon. And even to say that like these hot yoga places or they'll say, well, it's hatha yoga. It's not technically even hatha yoga, because they're practicing a very yang style of yoga. And ha and tha is also to strike. It's to strike, and there's the sound after, and there's that response. And so to say I teach or I study hatha yoga, that to me is somebody who doesn't know what they're talking about. That to me is somebody who has just gotten a hint of yoga, and because like you said earlier, it's like that iceberg, and you see in the picture, the ocean, and there's a little bit above the water, and the rest of yoga is down here, and this is the yoga that most people are getting.
Right.
And that's what I got in my introduction. And it wasn't until I got to Ashtanga that I got the bigger picture. I got the whole rest of yoga. And that's what I love about Ashtanga. It doesn't matter where you go in the world, you're going to get a teacher who's qualified, capable, mindful, and intending good things for you in your practice. And there's room for grace, there's room for freedom, and there's room for very good dictation and direction as well.
Mhm.
And you're not chastised or ostracized or in any way, shape, or form. You're supported in your growth and your joy and your process, and that to me is the yoga. That to me is where everybody in the room can grow, and you can look at the person next to you who's maybe doing a pose 10 times better than you, and rather than being jealous by them, it's inspiring. You're like, wow, look at Joe. Look, wow, he's just, I want to do that. Like, that's something I want to do. Not like I want to do it better than Joe. I want to be better than Joe. It's something I want to embody in my own, and have my own experience of what Joe is having. And that's because of guidance. That's because of the seeds set by the teacher.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and like having these yoga boot camps and competitions and Olympics and stuff. I think the whole yoga Olympics was a Bikram sort of engine, and Indian sort of thing. Not really. Bikram came in later, so I can't say that. But he, I think he brought something different to it, and having a competition out of it is the same sort of thing. They could, like the Olympics, set it up with a foundation and intention of goodwill, and wow, that person just got a 10. I want to get my own 10. I don't want to beat that person. I don't want to compete against that person. I want to get my own 10. I want to be the best I can be. And both schools of thought apply in both arenas, because we have people in Olympics who behave this one way, and we have them who have this other thinking. And yeah, Wayne Dyer talked this story one time about Olympic athletes, one of them coming up lame in the run because he was just so mentally anguishing himself, and the other one about competition, and the other one was just about doing better than his time the day before. And like those are just completely different schools of thought and different like trains of practice and modes of intention when you unpack who you are as a yogi. And we're all yogis, in my opinion, whether you know it or not, whether you believe it or not. You are a yogi in practice. You're either one sitting or you're one in practice. Well, I don't know that you're ever sitting, quite frankly, because you're still learning, and that's a process of yoga. Like we're yogis, we're students, and our job is to discover and unpack this and make this better than it was yesterday, not to compare it to anybody or anything. And that's what my teaching has been about for a long, long time, because of this experience, because of this first experience being so bad and so psychologically abusive, that as soon as I found something the polar opposite, it was like, wow, this is what yoga is about. Like this is the community and serving the greater good. You know, the mask wearing of supporting the whole.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more on that one. So you've been that on that path for what good 30 years now then.
I've been teaching close to 30 years, maybe upper 20s. Yeah. What is it? I want to say like mid 90s, something like that. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I love teaching yoga, and it's interesting. I just picked up a new student recently, and he's brand new, scratch, you know, and he's like, you know, I hope you don't mind, you know, teaching a beginning student. And it's like, no, I actually totally dig getting a brand new student. Like these teachers are like, I just want to teach to advanced students or something. I love teaching advanced students just as much, don't get me wrong, but new students are just like, it's kind of like you have a brand new garden, so you just got a raised bed garden. Like, oh, it's like tofu, you know, it's this beautiful piece of tofu, and you had the chance to marinate it and plant some really good seeds, you know, and just watch what they do with them, you know, watch how they cultivate the garden. And that to me is fantastic about being a yoga teacher, and just being able to connect with somebody, see them in a way that they cannot see themselves, and see a trajectory or a path that gets them to a place that they never imagined was even possible in a short window of time, through a maze that as a teacher you can see from up here, and they're down in the thick of it, and it's just like thick and brambly, and as a teacher, when I look at somebody, I can just it's just like they literally are an open book. Like they present, and maybe they got a funky knee or an ankle or a hip, or they've walked just a few steps even in front of me, and boom, there's an entire assessment that that energetically I've downloaded from anybody who approaches me, and whether they're a student or not, I have this this um, gift, I'll call it,
Yeah,
to
it's a good one. Yeah.
to to uh, to see a path of transformation for people, and
Mhm.
uh, with just a little bit of effort, we can just, like, in a single day, I can have somebody doing a handstand that just never thought it was possible, and it doesn't even take me, 10-15 minutes. And that's exciting to me. That I love. And with a beginning student, you get so many of those. You get so many of those. And the advanced students, I have to keen them into a millimeter makes a difference today. A millimeter of growth makes a difference today, and that's exciting. Like,
Mhm.
people, I'm still to this day blown away when I hear a teacher say, I'm burnout. Or a student, an advanced practitioner say, I'm burnout. I think I've just too much yoga or whatever. Like, oh, I don't care what your excuse is. There's no. I was like, how is that even possible? The yoga is so amazing. It's so amazing. And if you're grateful for the millimeter, there's an infinite supply of millimeters in
Exactly,
every
exactly.
single
Yeah.
pose. What
Uh-huh.
was that?
Well, I was saying I agree with you completely. Yeah.
You
It
know,
is life itself being expressed moment by moment. That millimeter is just as great as a person taking a giant step forward. It's the
yeah,
same.
yeah.
There's no difference. You know when 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 you relax into the moment, it doesn't matter. The outcome.
Yeah,
You know,
the gain is the gain, whether it's little or big. It's a win. It's better than
exactly,
you were yesterday.
exactly, exactly. Yeah.
And my new guy, he gains an inch in a forward bend. That's his perceived gain. Wow, I got an inch, right? Later on, it's a millimeter. Who, like, honestly, a millimeter is fantastic. It's fantastic when you are paying attention at the millimeter scale on every single pose. And well, gosh, I even got my finger back an extra milli. It's like that to me is the Bruce Lee when he talked about, he was said to be able to manipulate every single muscle in his body, like nearly all of his muscles he could manipulate in some way, shape, or form. And that's paying attention. That's the yogi in the nth degree who is so tapped into who they are that you are able to do the things he can do. It's not
Mhm.
magic. It's something anybody can do if you pay attention. And the more you pay attention, the more wisdom comes in. And then it's like, wow, there's another release. There's another release. And if you're not looking, you're never going to find them.
Yeah, that's why when I first started, let's say when I was 18 years old, they have the corpse pose, where you relax everything, and I did it, but I really didn't grasp the true effect of it until about a year ago, where I
Wow.
started doing that, and then I would do it like twice a day, and then over a period of time, I learned I can control my various muscles in my body. So I thought, okay, I'll take it there. And then the same thing with pranayama, with the pranayama, I started to learn how I could, consciously, do pranayama without having, I'm like closing my muscles with my hand. It's like over time, I learned that I could voluntarily, breathe through one nostril and then do the pranayama and then breathe and exhale through the other one. And I learned, I could, continuously breathe because there's pranayama exercises for left nostril only and right nostrils. And so then over time, I learned how to voluntarily do it. That experience, inside just got greater and greater. And then I kind of realized, the Jains were onto something. The yogis were onto something when they were saying that one of the key components is relaxation, because even that minute, release. Imagine how much emotional baggage gets released because your emotions are stored in your muscles, and a minute, just a minute release, those emotions, our subconscious emotions gets released. So that's what I've been seeing it. Just for myself, this is a total path of integrating mind, body, and soul. So the exercise part, is important, but the same same as the pranayama, same with the meditation, the same as you say, pulling weeds from the garden. It's all life itself. So that's what my realization. It took me good 50 years.
Well, here's an interesting thing about corpse pose. Age brings wisdom.
Yeah, exactly.
When you get closer towards death, corpse pose starts to make sense.
Yeah. But
yeah, it's such a good practice. Like the practice of death is a good practice. So when the day comes, we let go easier. It's not a struggle.
Yeah. Well, that's one thing that that's why I love meditation from the moment go, because I was always wondering, what that death-like experience was. And meditation gives you a good, don't you think, a good glimpse that there is no death. The body just returns back to the earth. That elements return back, and as a human being, we simply just I call it the quantum soup. Basically we go back to the quantum soup.
Yes, I agree. 100%. The soup. I feel like there was something else I was going to say about that. About the sort of, the two different paths is like when you were talking about the ease. Like I said, I beat myself. I did this path of beating myself for a while, and it is a path. Like, it's a path. There's no doubt about it. It is a path, and it worked for me. I suffered from it a number of times. One time I even tore my hamstring, which took me 3 years to recover, because of this thinking. And
well, that's the same thing Buddha went through, right? Buddha did the exact same thing. He tortured himself. He went through pain and all that, sacrifices, this and that. And finally, I think he came to you came to the same conclusion as him, not my. But Buddha came that by totally relaxing that state of enlightenment was always there, but because he struggled, made so much effort, that the amount of effort doesn't take you there, but the amount of relaxation will, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like, the more I get into my practice, well, I can't say it's the amount of effort, because there is effort, but it's the right intentioned effort, right? Like, I'm like, no, I'm gonna get this forward bend, or no, when the forward bend comes, the forward bend comes. But I still have to have the effort and the intention to attempt the forward bend, but it's not to take myself into struggle in that intention. It's to find the edge and then back off. See, here's the thing. Here is a really key factor in every stretch. In every stretch, there are two angles of approach. So I'll try and give it to you this way. If here, let me take this off. Okay, so if I'm doing a bicep curl, right?
Mhm.
There's a place of foundation and a place of freedom, a place of movement. Okay, we fair?
Yeah, right.
So in every pose, in every yoga pose, that's the case. There's a place of foundation and a place of freedom, or a place of movement, or the potential for movement. Warrior one, your feet are rooted to the ground, your arms are free to move. Even though we generally keep them in a stable position, they're free to move like a tree. A tree is rooted, but its branches are free. In tree pose, we have a foundation, we have generally our hands in prayer, but we have the potential, and often we'll even do stuff like this to check our balance, right? These little tests that we do.
Yeah.
But there's a sense of freedom and connection in everything. And so if this is the place of connection and I have this freedom, but the weight is down here, let's say there's a dumbbell down here and I'm lifting the dumbbell up. Now the muscle is pulling from here to here. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. Mhm.
Okay. All right. Now, if I let go of that weight and instead I reach up and grab a bar above me, and now the hand becomes a non-moving object, and I have to pull my body up to the hand and let my body down. You understand? Now that's different. Now this becomes the non-moving object.
Yeah, right.
And now the muscle is pulling this way instead. Okay, so that gives us our two. In every pose or every action, there's the potential to come from two different directions. That's what I'm trying to say. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So when it comes to a stretch of any kind, let's just take a forward bend. You bend forward, your hamstrings start to feel the pull, you feel the strain. Something says, stop. That's your body telling you, stop, don't do that. Something's wrong. That's the point at which you have to ask yourself, can I come into this forward bend from another direction? Maybe if I come into it from this way rather than from this way, my body will respond differently. Maybe I'll have a better response to it. Or maybe if I pause at that window, breathe a little bit and see and listen and notice, something will let go. Maybe there's something else I can do to find a let go. You know, it's this type of thinking as a yogi that gets us deeper. It gets us deeper into the moment. And with paying attention rather than just being like, oh no, I'm gonna get this fucking thing. I'm gonna grab the mat and yank myself into a forward bend and just struggle and then stop breathing and you're just like, I'm at the yoga today and I feel so good. Like that's not it. That's not it. And so like in my book, one of the things I'm writing in a chapter right now is that you've got to look at the other angles, and this applies to injuries as well. Let's say in this window of movement, let's say, let me give it to you from a crane's perspective. I've got a crane, big crane up on top of a building, right? And it's got the boom out over the edge, and we're lifting up plate glass windows to mount on the building, okay?
Yeah.
And so there's the crank at the top, let's call it a hand crank, right? And we can lift that glass up, we can lift the glass up, we can lift it up, and if we let it go, it's gonna spin, and that glass is gonna go to, and we grab it, and then there's gonna be a snapping experience, right? And the glass is probably gonna break, right?
Yeah.
So this is the way we behave in our yoga when we do this sort of, we behave this way to the tissues inside, right? And their response is not a healthy response ultimately. Yes, you can make progress from it, but it's not in the end, it's a suffering path, right? You climb the mountain or you can go around the mountain. Both are paths. And some people like to climb mountains, some people like to walk. It's like you know, I just prefer a sweeter, easier path now, and it's taken me years to learn that. And my point to this is let's say I've got this long spool on the crank, right? And after a while, it gets a wear spot down by right where it attaches into the wheel. That thread coming in, that cable coming in, starts to get frayed edges right where it's coming into the spool, right? And so now my attachment, my origin for that connection or the muscle is at a risky potential. It's in danger. And if I reach out too far and try and pick something up,
And you're
I'm at a risk of injury.
right.
Fair?
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So,
Yeah.
but with this thinking, if I take the spool and I roll it up a little bit and I get some of that around the spool, now I'm not engaging the injury. I'm engaging all of the rest of the spool. Okay? Is that fair?
Yeah, that's
Right?
fair. Yeah.
Right? So when we were talking about millimeters earlier, the yogi who because of their teaching and foundations, when they get an injury at work or wherever else it was, because hopefully it wasn't in yoga, right? They can take the wisdom of yoga to be like, oh, millimeters count. The injury is here. Let's shorten that group. Let's shorten that up. And we're not going to use that anymore. We're going to access all the rest of the cable that is healthy, supportive, and capable of doing the action that I need. Right?
Yeah.
And I can do it from any action just so long as I secure the injury first. Right? So this becomes way more difficult when it's like the belly of the muscle, or less so the other, the insertion where the muscle might be going into the joint out here, right? So because then we can lock that part down and use the whole rest of this. But when it comes to like a tear in the middle of the belly, that's a whole nother sort of like advanced micromillimeter thinking that you have to now bind that segment and start to use the rest of the area over here and here, right? You're totally capable of doing it, but this is a whole nother level of thinking around your own healing and support of yourself in the process. And I've had to do all these. That's how I know this. And that's how I eventually ended up healing my hamstring. So, I guess that I hope that sort of wraps it up. But the point is, whether you're doing a forward bend or a handstand, there are two ways to come into everything. And no matter whether the injury is at the top, the middle, or the bottom, there's a way to protect the injury and still have access to the rest of the unit.
That's why, before I ever do any a practice, first thing I always do is I meditate, let's say for an hour and a half. So at that point, I'm kind of in tune, I'm with whatever you want to call it. But then when I close my eyes and I do my posture, my body and my mind is in tune, and my mind, body, and soul is in tune. So at that point, the body has an intelligence, which it is continually, don't you think, is always talking to you. It's always telling you, hey, you're going too far, this or that. Most people never listen to the human body, but the human body is always telling you, how it feels. It's like my thing is, if my body says I'm going to be coming down with a cold, which mind you, I hardly ever have, because my body says you're coming down with a cold, so I go to bed an hour earlier. And so then that extra hour allows the body to overcome that. So I'm saying one of the main components, I think, in yoga is listening to the intelligence of the body. The body is always telling you. If you develop that intuition, it will tell you when you're overboard doing a posture, right?
Yeah, no doubt about it.
So it seems to me that that's the part where, I mean, there's so much to achieve just by doing a posture. There's that intelligence, the listening to the body. It's also the mind, harmony of the mind, doing a posture over time, if you're conscious and aware, the mind will be conscious and aware. The mind will slowly, instead of having 1,001 thoughts, you do a posture, hold it, and a person enters into the silence, where you might have a thought may just be like a drop of water, and that drop of water, hits the ocean. It's like once every 15 seconds instead of like raining, or a violent storm. And I think that's yeah. I see you and I, we're on the same wavelength,
Pretty much.
Well, I think that about wraps it up. I love hearing your story, and the wisdom that you had. You gave me a lot just to think about and ponder. I call it pondering. When I was young, I remember I heard Mafu a lot. He would say it, ponder this over. And to be honest, this was in my early 30s. I did not understand what he was talking about. And now, years later, I love to ponder. For me, I think that's one of the key things in life is pondering, think things over. And yeah, we all, learn lessons. Sometimes it takes 30 years.
Ain't that the truth?
Yeah. So
Yeah. Just one caveat to that is this is there are a lot of teachers, in my opinion, who teach that sort of way as well, and that long-term keep you coming sort of thinking, and not give you the information or the wisdom. And I'm just like, no, I'm going to give you everything and plant the seeds today. And maybe it won't all make sense, but you're going to ponder it, and it's going to, down the road, you're going to be like, what the hell was he saying about that breathing and the yin and the yang? Oh, wow. Now, and there's an embodiment, there's an experience of it. And rather than just, sort of doling it out and being like, no, I want to give them 2 or 3 steps. And then, if they can only do step 1 today, they'll know what step 2 and 3 look like.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yep. Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'm glad you enjoyed that thing I wrote about Leah.
Yeah, that was tough. It's all been tough for me. I've been processing quite a bit. It's really sad to find out so much longer also. And it's just sad, like the nostalgic hopes of walking with her on the beach again are gone. And it's just, it's a bummer.
Yeah. Well, Brian, yeah.
We both lost our mom to cancer, so it's. She was there with me. Heather was dating me when I was going through it with my mom in 2009.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
So, it just, and I was there with her for the first half of her mom's. The last I knew, things were better, and I just had assumed that's still the way it was.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, I'm glad to know.
Yeah. Well, once again, yeah, this has been an incredible time, talking to you. Yeah. I'm glad, to know, more about you and your journey, so it's yeah. We'll definitely keep in touch, and maybe we can continue doing this more sometime.
Sounds good, Richard.
All right. Hey,
You well.
have an incredible day.
You too.
Bye.